My name is Daniel. If you had met me 5 years ago, you would probably have thought I had a good life. I had a decent job. I lived in a small apartment. I had a loving family. I had good health. From the outside, everything looked fine. But inside, I was fighting a battle that no one could see. The battle was inside my own mind. Every morning, I woke up with the same feeling. What if today goes wrong? Before my day even started, my mind was already imagining problems. What if my boss got angry? What if I made a mistake? What if people laughed at me? What if I failed? My mind never became quiet. It kept asking endless questions. None of them had good answers. I was an overthinker. A simple text message could keep me awake for hours. If someone replied with only one word, I thought, are they upset with me? If my manager said, we need to talk tomorrow, I imagined losing my job. If my friend didn't answer my call, I thought I had done something wrong. Most of the time, none of those fears were real, but my mind treated them as if they were. One afternoon, I gave a presentation at work. Everyone clapped. My manager smiled and said, good job, Daniel. But while everyone else saw success, I saw only one small mistake. I had pronounced one word incorrectly. That tiny mistake stayed in my mind for days. I replayed it again and again. I asked myself, why did I say it like that? I should have practiced more. I'm not good enough. No one else remembered that mistake. Only I did. At night, overthinking became even worse. The room was quiet. The lights were off. But my mind became louder. I remembered embarrassing moments from years ago. Small failures, old regrets, conversations I wished I could change. Sometimes I stayed awake until 2 or 3 in the morning. Not because I had work to do, but because I couldn't stop thinking. My mother often noticed the dark circles under my eyes. One evening she asked, Daniel, are you sleeping well? I forced a smile. I'm fine. But she gently held my hand. No, you're carrying something heavy. You don't have to carry it alone. Her words touched my heart, but I still didn't know how to explain what I was feeling. How do you explain a mind that never stops talking? Weeks passed. My stress became worse. I stopped enjoying simple things. I no longer enjoyed reading books. I stopped meeting friends. Even watching my favorite movies felt difficult. My body was present, but my mind was always somewhere else, usually worrying about a future that hadn't happened. One Friday afternoon, something small happened, but it felt huge to me. My boss sent me an email. It simply said, please come to my office at 4 p.m. That was all. Nothing more. Most people would simply wait. Not me. My mind immediately started creating stories. I'm getting fired. I made a mistake. I disappointed everyone. For 3 hours, I couldn't focus on my work. At exactly 4 o'clock, I walked into his office. My hands were shaking. My heart was beating fast. I sat down quietly. He smiled. Daniel, I have good news. I looked confused. Good news? Yes. We're giving you a new project because you've been doing excellent work. For a moment, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had spent 3 hours preparing for the worst. Reality was completely different. As I walked back to my desk, I asked myself, why does my mind always expect the worst? That evening, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror. I looked tired, not because of hard work, because of endless thinking. I looked into my own eyes and quietly asked, when was the last time you truly felt peaceful? I couldn't remember. That answer scared me. The next morning, I decided to take a long walk in the city park. The weather was cool. The trees moved gently in the wind. Children laughed as they played. Birds sang above me. Everyone around me seemed peaceful. Only my mind was still racing. I sat alone on an old wooden bench. I closed my eyes. I tried to stop thinking, but the more I tried, the louder my thoughts became. Then I heard a calm voice beside me. You're trying to fight your thoughts, aren't you? I opened my eyes. An elderly man was sitting on the other end of the bench. He wore simple clothes. His face was peaceful. His eyes were kind. I nodded slowly. Yes. He smiled gently. I used to fight my thoughts, too. I looked at him with curiosity. You did? Every day? So, how did you stop? He looked up at the trees for a moment. Then he smiled. I didn't stop my thoughts. I learned something much more powerful. I leaned forward. What was it? He looked at me and quietly said, I learned that not every thought deserves to be believed. Those simple words echoed in my mind. Not every thought deserves to be believed. I had never heard anyone say that before. I didn't know it yet, but that sentence was about to change my life forever. The old man smiled warmly. He looked at the trees dancing in the wind. Then he asked me, What is your name? My name is Daniel. I'm Samuel, he replied. It is nice to meet you. His voice was calm. Listening to him made me feel strangely relaxed. Samuel pointed toward a small lake. Look at the water. I looked carefully. The surface was peaceful. Then a bird landed on the water. Small waves appeared. After a few moments, the water became calm again. Samuel smiled. Your mind is like that lake. Thoughts are like the waves. You cannot stop the bird from landing, but you don't have to keep creating bigger waves. I stayed silent. His words made sense. Then Samuel told me an old story. Many years ago, a grandfather spoke to his grandson. He said, Inside every person live two wolves. One wolf is full of fear. It creates doubt. It creates anger. It creates jealousy. It creates negative thoughts. It whispers, You are not good enough. You will fail. Nobody believes in you. You are too weak. The second wolf is different. It is filled with hope. It believes in courage, kindness, gratitude, patience, peace. It quietly says, Keep going. You are learning. Every problem has a solution. Tomorrow can be better. I listened carefully. Then I asked, Which wolf wins? Samuel smiled. The one you feed every day. Those words hit me deeply. I realized something. Every day, I was feeding the wrong wolf. I spent hours thinking about failure. I repeated negative words to myself. I expected the worst. Without realizing it, I was making my fears stronger. Samuel looked at me kindly. Daniel, tell me something. How many of your fears have actually happened? I thought for a moment. Then I laughed quietly. Very few. And how many never happened? Almost all of them. He nodded. Exactly. Your imagination is powerful, but you have been using it against yourself. We sat together for almost an hour. Before leaving, Samuel gave me one simple challenge. For the next 7 days, watch your thoughts. Don't fight them. Don't run from them. Simply notice them. When a negative thought appears, ask yourself, is this a fact, or is it only my fear speaking? I repeated the question softly. Fact or fear? Samuel smiled. That one question can change your life. The next morning, I began my challenge. As soon as I woke up, my mind said, Today will probably be a bad day. Instead of believing it, I paused. Then I asked myself, is that a fact? No, it is only a fear. Immediately, I felt lighter. The thought disappeared. Not because I forced it away, but because I stopped believing it. At work, another thought appeared. My coworkers think I'm not smart. Again, I asked, is this a fact? I looked around. Everyone was smiling. One colleague even thanked me for helping her the day before. The answer became clear. No, it is only another fearful story. For the first time, I caught my mind creating problems that didn't exist. I felt fear rising inside me. Then I remembered Samuel's lesson. I closed my eyes for a moment. I took one slow breath. Then I asked myself, is this fear or is it fact? The answer was clear. It was only fear. The facts were different. We still had time. We had a good team. We had solutions. Instead of panicking, we made a plan. Step by step, we solved every problem. A week later, the project was completed successfully. That evening, I walked to the park. Samuel was sitting on the same bench. He smiled before I even spoke. "I can see it on your face." "What?" "You trusted yourself." I nodded. I almost let fear control me again. But this time, I didn't listen. Samuel smiled proudly. "That's growth. Growth doesn't mean fear disappears. It means fear no longer makes your decisions." Those words stayed with me. As autumn turned into winter, life became peaceful, not because problems disappeared, but because I had changed. I still had difficult days. Sometimes negative thoughts returned. Sometimes I felt anxious. But now, I knew what to do. I didn't fight my thoughts. I observed them. I questioned them. Then I let them go, like leaves floating down a river. One snowy evening, Samuel handed me a small, folded piece of paper. "Don't open it now. Read it when life becomes difficult again." I smiled. "I hope that day never comes." He smiled gently. "Life always tests us. The question isn't whether problems will come. The question is, who will you become when they do?" I placed the paper safely in my wallet. At that moment, I had no idea that the biggest challenge of my life was only a few weeks away. A challenge that would test every lesson I had learned. Life was going well. For almost 1 year, I had practiced positive thinking every day. I still wrote in my gratitude journal. I still meditated every morning. I still visited Samuel every weekend. I believed I had finally learned how to control my mind. But then, life tested me. It was a Monday morning. The office felt unusually quiet. People were whispering. Some looked worried. Others avoided eye contact. Around 10 o'clock, everyone received the same email. "Please gather in the conference room at 10:30 a.m." A year ago, I would have immediately imagined the worst. This time, I simply took a deep breath. I reminded myself, don't fear something that hasn't happened yet. At 10:30, our manager entered the room. His face looked serious. He sighed deeply. "I have some difficult news. Our company has lost a major client. We are forced to reduce our staff." The room became silent. My heart beat faster. Then he slowly began reading names. One by one, suddenly, I heard mine. "Daniel." For a moment, everything around me became quiet. An hour later, I packed my desk. Some coworkers hugged me. Some shook my hand. Emily looked at me sadly. "I'm so sorry." I smiled. "It's okay." She looked surprised. "You're calmer than I expected." I smiled again. "I've learned something. Worrying doesn't change reality. It only steals today's peace." As I walked home carrying a small box of my belongings, my old fears returned. What if no one hires me? What if I lose my apartment? What if everything falls apart? The thoughts became louder. For a moment, I almost believed them. Then I remembered the folded paper Samuel had given me months earlier. I opened my wallet. The paper was still there. I unfolded it carefully. It contained only one sentence. "When life closes one door, don't spend so much time staring at it that you miss the one opening beside you." I read it again and again, then I smiled. That evening, instead of sitting at home feeling sorry for myself, I opened my notebook. I wrote 2 lists. The first list was called Things I Cannot Control, Losing My Job, the Economy, Other People's Decisions. The second list was called Things I Can Control, My Attitude, My Effort, My Learning, My Health, My Next Step. Looking at the second list gave me hope. I realized my future was not over. It was simply changing. The next morning, I woke up early. I got dressed as if I were still going to work. I refused to stay in bed feeling defeated. Instead, I updated my resume. I applied for 5 jobs, then 10, Then 15. Every day I learned a new skill online. I improved my communication. I practiced interviews. I exercised. I continued writing in my gratitude journal. My circumstances had changed, but my habits had not. 2 weeks later, I received several rejection emails. For a moment, disappointment returned. But this time I didn't say, "I'm a failure." Instead, I said, "This opportunity wasn't meant for me. The right one is still ahead." That small change in my words completely changed my emotions. One afternoon, I met Samuel in the park. He looked at me and smiled. "I heard you lost your job." I nodded. "Yes, but strangely, I feel stronger than I expected." Samuel laughed softly. "That's because you've stopped depending on circumstances for your happiness. You've learned to depend on your mindset." A few days later, something unexpected happened. While attending a networking event, I met a woman named Sophia. She owned a small company that trained young professionals. We talked for almost an hour. Before leaving, she smiled and said, "You have a very calm way of speaking. I think our students could learn from you." I laughed. "I've only recently learned to stay calm myself." She smiled. "Sometimes the best teachers are those who have struggled the most." A week later, she offered me a position. Not only would I help train new employees, I would also lead workshops on confidence, communication, and positive thinking. I couldn't believe it. The very challenge that had once almost destroyed me had become my greatest strength. That evening, I walked home under a beautiful sunset. I realized something important. Losing my old job wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a better chapter. If I had never lost that job, I would never have discovered my true purpose. For the first time, I truly understood Samuel's message. Sometimes, life removes something good, only to make room for something even better. 5 years have passed since I lost my job. Looking back now, I can honestly say that losing that job was one of the best things that ever happened to me. At that time, it felt like the end. Today, I know it was a new beginning. Life has a strange way of teaching us. Sometimes our biggest disappointment becomes our greatest blessing. I started working with Sophia's company. Every week, I met people from different backgrounds. Some were students, some were business owners, some were looking for their first job. Others had lost hope after many failures. Although their stories were different, their biggest problem was often the same. They were trapped inside their own minds, just like I had been. One day, after finishing a workshop, a young man stayed behind. He looked nervous. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," I replied. He looked down. "I always think I'm going to fail. I compare myself with everyone. I can't stop overthinking. How did you become so confident?" I smiled. Then I answered honestly. I wasn't always confident. I simply stopped believing every negative thought. He looked surprised. "Is it really that simple?" I smiled. "It's simple, but it isn't always easy." I shared my own story with him. I told him about the sleepless nights, the fear, the anxiety, the endless what-if questions. Then I told him about Samuel, the old man in the park, the two wolves, the gratitude journal, the breathing exercises, the simple question that changed everything. "Is this a fact, or is it only my fear?" The young man smiled. "I'll remember that.